Hi everyone, my name is Carmel and I'm the Customer Success and Partners Lead here in One Page CRM. I'm delighted to be joining you as today's host on how to adapt your team to the new reality and reinvent sales. And just to give you a quick background, the reason we came up with this topic was, our main market is salespeople. And what we've learned over the last 8 to 10 weeks is that salespeople have found themselves in this new unknown environment. And it's a good time to kind of hone in and relook at their current processes and see how they can improve and adapt to the new norm that we've found ourselves in. A lot of our salespeople as well would be used to being on the road a lot, so or maybe working from the office, and now suddenly they're 100% remote. The businesses that you would usually sell to are closed, or maybe are again that they've gone remote too, as a flip of that. So it's just getting some tips and tricks as well on how to stay productive, but also bring a fun element as well if you work with a team. So that's always important to keep the team morale up as well. So we'll be covering all of those. We've got Larry, our customer success champion, and he'll be there on questions and some chat. So keep them coming. I'll also be dipping in and out as well. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. The more questions, the better. And so the best part, our speakers. First up, we've got Teresa French, and she's the CEO and founder of Sellmark 360, which is a sales consultancy specializing in helping small to medium-sized businesses to simplify, implement, and overall transform their businesses. So Teresa has an extensive range of experience, over 25 years, she tells us, although she definitely doesn't look it. She will be providing some insights in how to, tailor your messaging to those in times of crisis, and also how to adapt your business a little bit better. Then we have, carrying on from Teresa, we have Tim, and Tim is the head of sales and account management at Help Scout, which Help Scout is a customer support software, which we use here ourselves as well. So we're very familiar with that, with them and all of their content as well. So Tim is going to talk to us today about how to engage, retain, and grow your customer base. And he's also going to be sharing some tips on what they've done as well in Help Scout to help them adapt to this new reality. And then finally, we have, last but not least, we have Danielle Saker, who's the partnership manager at Zapier. And Danielle, or Zapier, is an automation tool that helps users connect to over 2,000 apps, including One Page CRM and Help Scout, and of course, many, many more. So Danielle is going to talk to us today about remote working and some tips to stay productive, but also, as we mentioned earlier, adding a fun element to that. So without further ado, I'm just going to give you a quote. So in the middle of every difficulty lies an opportunity. And that's a quote by Albert Einstein. So I'll pass it over to Teresa now to get going. So thank you, Teresa.
Fantastic. So I will share my screen. So I think I need the screen capability there. It is great to see all of you today. Although I don't see all of your faces, I know that you're there because I can see you as participants. So that's fabulous. I'm really excited to be here with you. And I love that quote. It's something I share quite often myself, amongst all obstacles or opportunities. And I think that's really where we are today. So we'll get the screen sharing here. And by the way, I may not look like I have 25 years. You're probably really going to go crazy when I tell you I actually have closer to 40, because my first sales business was a dog walking business. So I went door to door to find the neighbors to pay me $5 a week to walk their dogs. So always hustling. All right. And let me know if you can see my screen. You should be seeing the pretty graphic there.
Yep, all good here.
All right, fantastic. All right, well, like I said, I'm thrilled to be here. Great introduction. I don't think a whole lot more needs to be said, other than the fact that when I think about sales and what has been most successful for me over all of the years, but especially now, is a concentration on human-to-human communication and contact. And while I'll talk a little bit about this uncertain time, I find it incredibly encouraging that right now is probably one of the best times to be connecting with common shared experiences than any other we've experienced in history. So as a consultancy, when I work with my clients, I really help them to figure out ways to simplify their sales process and really focus on the human-to-human connection, to reduce the overwhelm and create more consistent results. So it's from that place that I'll share my advice for you today. I have 4 different things you can start to do to change your approach to your sales, and with the intention of helping you be more successful. So one of the questions I get quite a bit, or at least I've heard, is has sales changed? 2 months ago, we were cranking out calls, we were going to networking meetings, we were sending dozens of emails a week and shaking hands with colleagues, and that is all stopped. In fact, some of you might even be in your closet watching this webinar from a phone because your wife is out at the kitchen table on a conference call herself, and your dogs and your guinea pig are running around the house. So clearly we are in a new working environment. But with that new frontier and with the new challenges comes opportunity. And in my opinion, when it comes to sales, there is one rule that has not changed and will never change. And at the end of the day, sales is and always has been a relationship game. And so how we build relationships outside of our businesses is a really good indicator of how we should start to build our relationships within our business. And applying the concepts of human communication, compassion, empathy, interest, curiosity, all of those things. When we meet someone new, we always reach out with that curiosity. And so, like I said at the top here, this is a great time to really share the human experience, and that we're all sharing the same thing, and we're all motivated by the same things. Unfortunately, in many cases, fear, scarcity, lack, fear of failure, those are drivers that our overactive lizard brain oftentimes makes us default to. So as salespeople, we need to be in the field with solutions and opportunities and positivity, and being able to come to our clients, first understanding where they are, and then connecting these solutions that we offer according to and in context to what they're suffering from. So, right now we're in the greatest amount of change we've probably all experienced, and we don't like change. Humans don't like change. There's the change that you choose, weight loss and changing jobs, and then there's the change that chooses us, which is COVID. And in that, it isn't actually the change that kills us. It's not the change that scares us. It's the transition. It's the transition from going from what we don't know to what we do know again. And there is an incredible amount of vulnerability and risk and scary stuff in the middle of that transition. And so with that, I think our best bet is to rely back on our human capacity to connect with other humans, find common interests, and find common ground. And while to many of us, especially in businesses that are really suffering, it may feel like this has been one great big stop sign. When I work with my clients, I really have worked hard to help them see this as a yellow light. Now, I grew up in a very rural, small town. We only had one light hanging from a cable diagonally across the busiest intersection in our town. And it was a yellow light, and it just kept flashing all the time, full time. Didn't have a red one, didn't have a green one. It was just a yellow flashing light. And I see this season we're in as a little bit of that one light, yellow flashing light in a small town. Things have not stopped. They have absolutely slowed down. And that yellow light is a cautionary sign. It's enter the intersection with caution. And so we've heard a lot about the uncertainty. And I have a bit of an opinion that I'll share, and I hope that you'll see the spirit that I'm sharing it in. We have always had uncertainty. This is the only difference about right now. It's not different, but it's at mass scale. We now have all of us experiencing massive uncertainty together at the same time globally. Now that is unprecedented. And clearly we're all trying to figure it out together. We're all trying to figure out the new way. So when it comes to your sales prospecting and your sales outreach, I get the question quite often, how do I adapt my current strategies? How do I adapt my current plans to this new global pandemic and struggling economy now and probably for a while in the future? Well, the answer is simple, but not easy, and that is to change your approach. And before I tell you how to do that and give you the 4 steps that I would recommend taking, I want to ask a question. Is this true or false? No one is spending money right now. In the chat, just put yes or no, true or false. No one's spending money right now. I hear this all the time. Everyone is locked up. I don't see the chat window Carmel, do we have some responses coming through?
Yes, we have lots of responses, lots of false, 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 false.
Great. That's great news, because I have heard that from a lot of people that it was actually true, and it is indeed false. And unfortunately, for those that do believe that it's true, it actually is. And that means you've stopped, and that means your revenue in your business has probably stopped as well. So the bottom line is, we're at a different speed. And when we talk about taking a different approach, we need to be looking at how we're thinking about our clients' circumstances. What do we have to do that? Well, first of all, we have to put ourselves in our clients' shoes. Part of our job in sales has always been putting ourselves in our buyer's shoes, but it's more true now than ever. We need to really understand not just what their problems are last month or the year before or a quarter before. What are their problems right now, and how has COVID changed those priorities? You know, ask yourself what has changed for them in the last 30 days, the last 7 days, or today. Are they facing any more risk or sudden change? You know, there are a lot of industries such as hospitality, to name a few. I know there was somebody that said they were in travel. Of course, emergency medicine has changed. There are areas in the country like New York City and California and Seattle. They have all been deeply impacted by COVID. Your job as a salesperson is to know, where are your prospects located? Are they being affected by those very disturbing numbers, and have they seen a decrease in their business? You know, sometimes it's not about contacting them right now. It's about just putting it off and moving on to a new region, moving on to a new possibility, because at the end of the day, they may not be ready to buy. And so the other caution I would have is, don't assume every business is on the brink of closure. There are businesses that are thriving and actually making great opportunity out of what's happening, and they need help too, possibly in a different way, just like those that are suffering. But at the end of the day, we can't just assume everybody is in the same boat. And that goes back to putting yourself in your client's shoes, doing your research, and finding out as much information about the problems that your prospects are suffering from, and then create solutions that match those needs. If we look at this is a Ruhr's hierarchy of corporate needs. We have our Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There has actually been created a bit of a business hierarchy of needs. And when we look at this, if you think back to the first couple of weeks of COVID and the shutdown and everything that was happening, everyone was in crisis response. That's you know, what do we need in the next 1 to 14 days? The sight line got really short. And so looking at visionary solutions that might help down the road are just not applicable, and they're not relevant. So as we move into this survival and recovery, I think we're somewhere between survival and recovery at this point. We're starting to settle in, we're starting to find new processes. People are working from home, and people are really very focused on productivity, which you're going to hear a little bit more about from both Danielle and Tim. But at the end of the day, we've got to know at what level are they in, because that is going to make a huge difference as to how a prospect makes a decision to move forward or not move forward. And so as we look at that, knowing this information, where is your prospect in relationship to your value proposition? Because the value proposition you had yesterday may not be relevant today, and you may need to change your approach to your value that you bring. And so, you know, we're the fastest in the industry, or buy now, save more. Those things are not relevant, but that messaging is not going to land. And so if you're in a business that you're still operating under your old value proposition, I would invite you to take a look at that and align that again with what you're finding out from your clients as their most immediate, critical, and crucial needs now versus what it was even 6 months ago. You may need to tweak your messaging. You may need to tweak that promise statement that you offer with your clients. And, you know, don't automatically write off entire industries. For example, selling at a restaurant sounds really, really difficult, but they have been ingenious in shifting to really focusing their value proposition onto delivery and pickup, and really shifting the way they do business. And many restaurants are actually thriving right now. You take the medical industry, you know, to keep patients and doctors and staff safe. We've gone to telemedics and call-ins, and being able to treat people without a walk-in into critical care or urgent care. So there are absolutely opportunities, and they've changed their approach, which is how they're thriving. You know, I think at the end of the day, we've got to just look at what is the outcome, not necessarily what we do, but what is the outcome that we offer a client in this season or any season, and it should always be aligned to how your clients, your prospects, see their most critical, pervasive, and expensive issues. And so the third way that I would encourage you to change your approach is to be patient and take your time. And I know what you're thinking. Quotas don't slow down. Reports don't slow down. You've got to sell. Bills still need to be paid. How on earth do you slow down when you can't slow down? You have to keep going at Mach speed. Well, you're not going to get there faster by pushing. And at the end of the day, this is one of those scenarios where you've got to go slower to go faster. The trust and the strongest relationships are built in the most difficult times, and we're in them. And you have to be invested in the relationship first and the transaction second. And when you are invested in the relationship, you are keen to their needs. You know what they need, and you're offering solutions that are very, very relevant. But you have to slow down and be a little bit more graceful. Soften your asks. Make sure that you're keeping, if you need a meeting on the calendar and it gets canceled, reschedule it. Be flexible, be nimble. Let them know that you're there to work with them. I've asked my clients to take their prospect's word when they get these timing push-offs. In maybe a little bit ago with sales push-offs, we would have thought it was the blow-off or the stall. At the end of the day, right now, people just need to breathe, and there are priorities that are coming higher than sometimes your solutions will allow. And so I also ask them to really remove all of the pressure to responding. Sometimes emails will go out at 3 days or 4 days later. Hey, did you get my email? Hey, I'm just wondering if this landed in the spam box. Hey. And at the end of the day, we have to be sensitive with our messaging and give room to breathe and let them come back to us when they're ready to come back to us, but be present and be assertive. Be that person who is the go-to value that they know they can trust. It's that trusted advisory role that will get you the relationship. Now, what this means in going slow means also doubling down on your follow-up. It means you have to be rock solid at follow-up. And thank goodness you have a tool already with one-page CRM to be able to do that. That next action stream that you get every morning when you log in, that needs to be utilized at top speed right now, because you're letting your clients have a little time, but we realize you can't take that same amount of time. So use that next action and set those appropriately so you have rock solid follow-up, and these relationships will transpire. You will earn their trust, and they will want to do business with someone who saw them through the most difficult times. And so slow down to go faster, be patient, and take your time, and give your prospects and your clients a little time to breathe. And lastly, really take a look at how you can be more collaborative in the solution finding. So acknowledge the moment, openly acknowledge that life has changed for all of us and we're in it together, but avoid the drama. I see a lot of emails going out saying, oh, in these times of uncertainty, or, oh my goodness, COVID has been so hard on everyone. Stay away from those ingenuous, platitudinal statements that really, especially those that, I hope you're well. Of course you do. As a human to human, you do hope they're well, but come to them with some value, some encouragement, show them some new perspective that they're not hearing from everyone else. So be different in that empathy that you bring to each email and each communication. And then, like I said, help them see possibility through 1 to 2 pieces of critical value that's been realigned and re-geared for their specific needs right now in this moment, and provide that in the context of what they need in this email to partner. And you really at this point have to let your buyer drive. Ask your buyer how they want to proceed. These are the things. One of the ways that I help my clients build their messages is, number one, acknowledge the situation in a non-dramatic way. Explain your obligation to reach out as a partner, why you're committed, what's the mission, why are you so passionate about helping that business, that particular prospect with this issue, what is in it for them, and why is it important for you to explore all options to solve that problem. And then lastly, ask them respectfully, how would you like to proceed? What would you like to do next? What do you see as next steps? Give them the power. In sales, the old game of sales, so much has been controlled by the salesperson. And don't get me wrong, for those of you who have been traditionally trained in sales, I'm not saying that you don't control the call when you're on the call. What I am saying is sometimes we have to let our clients feel like they're in control in order to buy their trust. We have to get the actual permission to be able to sell to them. And they have to know that we have their needs first and foremost in our minds. And so again, right now is probably the best time to come to these people, to your prospects, and say, we share this experience. How are you figuring it out? We've got some insights, and I would be happy to show you those insights if you'd like to hop on a quick 5 or 15-minute call. Or you come at this saying, you know, what my clients are finding is X, Y, and Z. I'm curious if this is true for you. Would you be willing to get on a call and just look at some situations together? And I'm happy to help in any way that I can. Again, human to human, empathetic, and genuine. And that's the greatest tools that you can bring to your sales game right now. You know, if we look at these 4 steps, basically walk in your client's shoes, update your value proposition, make sure that it matches, take your time and be patient, and concentrate as a collaborative partner. And we will get through this transition far more gracefully than we would had we not changed our approach. So the question might be, well, what now? All sounds good, sounds altruistic and great, but what does it actually look like in real life? What does it look like in a message? Or how do I construct those messages that I'm suggesting that you create? Well, I think Carmel's going to put a link in the chat here in just a moment to a download that we've created for you guys that basically has seven different ways. I removed one yesterday, but 7 different ways to be able to reach out genuinely and authentically, and how, not just the template. You know, their templates are great, right? We love to copy and paste and fill in a few blanks, but at the end of the day, there's some best practices included there. There's also some structure, some explanation as to why that message works, not just the template itself. And so I encourage you to download it. If you have anything you would like to discuss in regards to your sales game or anything, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. We can continue the conversation. But at the end of the day, I think right now the sales game can be fun if you make it, and just be you, be genuine and be curious, and reach out with an absolute concern for your clients, and they will respond. And so that's all I have for you today. I'm going to pass it back over to Carmel, and I can't wait to hear from Tim and Danielle. Changed your name, Tim.
Super. Thank you so much, Teresa, for that, and some really valid points. And as you said there about focusing on the relationship, I know here in One Page CRM, we like to think we are very much relationship focused because we genuinely care about our customers. And what little things that you can do as well is, you know, follow them on the social media, research, find out who your customers are, because sometimes you don't actually know who they are. So now's a good time to actually take some time, you know, follow their company on LinkedIn. If they're doing something good, sharing a positive story, you know, make sure to like the story. Just little things like that. When it comes to your CRM as well, it's always good to kind of maybe do a little bit of a cleanup, kind of look at your sales process, maybe see what you're getting right, and maybe see where maybe things haven't gone right even before the crisis. And now is a good time to kind of rethink and reevaluate and take a new perspective. So some great tips there, Teresa. And I like the one as well, slow down to go faster is definitely a good takeaway as well. So super.
How do you engage with your existing customers and prospects during this time? And I'm really going to split it into 2 sections. I want to talk a little bit about how we've approached this at Help Scout over the last couple of months. The reason being, starting there, is a few things. First, like, our context and our business and our customers might be very different than all of yours, and it's not necessarily applicable. But it is a question that's come up as we've talked about this, is like, what's Help Scout doing? So I thought it'd be helpful to share a little of who we are, how we've approached it, and then share some tips with you that I think are more general and things that any business should be keeping in mind as you consider how you're working with customers during this time. So not going to give you the whole Help Scout pitch, but just some context on Help Scout as a business. We're about 100 people working remotely globally, and we have about 10,000 customers. And I say that because understanding this context is what we had to take into account as the crisis started unfolding. And we like to say, our CFO says, it's really been a tale of 2 cities right now, where it seems like some of our customers, right, that are in the travel industry or property management, things of that nature, are impacted really negatively. But then there's others that are in, like, they sell baking products, right? Or they're in an on-demand service provider, and their business is booming, right? So we had to really approach this crisis with first really understanding, like, what is our team dynamic and what are our customers like, and how are they impacted? And once we spent time and we really thought about who our customers are, what we did was we really we were able to rely back on like, okay, what are our core values that we've established, right? As a larger team, early on in our business, we established a couple core values of helpfulness, excellence, and ownership. I share these because these were really great to have, right? In our day-to-day of operating, we always know that these are there. As we entered into a time of crisis and uncertainty, it was really nice to have values to rely back to as we determined how we wanted to approach this moving forward. So I share these for those of you who are just starting your business or are growing. If you don't yet have those values established of how you work with customers, it's a great time to do so, as it's a really great resource that your team can align around as you hopefully don't have another crisis like this, but as you move forward and approach problem solving in the future. So with that, I'll just share quickly how we've approached programs we've put in place. So we've really talked about understanding our customers, making sure that anything we design as far as communication or programs, we really think of that helpfulness, excellence, and really ownership, making sure the team here at Help Scout can get behind and communicate what we're doing. So when I talk about our team, Help Scout is a larger company. Really, there's 3 teams that I would say are partners with our customers and our prospects. And all of these teams collectively, it's not just sales job to drive growth in the business. All of our teams are responsible for growth, product adoption, and retention. So our 3 teams that we really thought about as we think of engaging with customers in a one-to-one or a one-to-many context are our customers team. Other companies would call this a support team. Really, they're working with our customers in a many-to-one fashion. They're building all of our self-service documentation. They're hosting webinars. And really, they communicate with the largest pool of our customers on a daily basis, right? The next is our sales team, right? They're the ones who are working with accounts one-on-one for prospecting and giving demos and helping with account setups and training new users to the system. And then we have our account management team that's working with our really large existing customers. So as we think through the phases and things we had to think about, we wanted to make sure as we were thinking of engagement with our customers and prospects, we really took into account not just the external environment, what are their businesses, how are they impacted, but also who are our internal stakeholders. We wanted to make sure that they all felt aligned around how we're going to go through and approach this together. So one of the formal things we did, and I'll talk about some of the less formal that I think are more generally applicable in a minute here, but we did shift some things in our business, right? We're very fortunate where we were able to defer a little revenue to really help meet customers and provide some relief during such a time. It's really important if you look at these and you say, wow, these seem like drastic measures. These were temporary, right? They were short-term fixes to alleviate some of the friction or pain we were seeing in the market. So there were 3 formal things that we did that we aligned all the teams around, that we could communicate with customers, that we could create documentation around and promote. The first was we just extended trials. So for all of our customers who did want to buy, right? They do want to spend money, they do want to evaluate our product. We just extended their trial window from 15 to 90 days. And really this goes to what Teresa was saying, where yes, we want to close the business and we want to get a new paying customer, but we really wanted to double down on being extra helpful in advance of that close during this time, which is why we extended that trial window. We did the same thing for existing customers. So how do we drive upgrades? The one thing we wanted to do is just drive more product adoption earlier before asking for payments. So we extended that window. And then we did have to offer relief programs to customers. And really we had different tiers. And we adjusted these based on the customer's circumstances. How were they impacted? How long would they be impacted for, et cetera? But I just share this today, not that this is possible for everyone to do, but I just wanted you to know how we've approached it here, and just to acknowledge that these aren't light decisions. These are hard things to make a call on, but during this time, it's what we've done at Help Scout to help. So as I shift gears to, great, I can't tell everybody to extend their trial, right? Or to go ahead and offer a relief program. Everyone's in a different situation. I did think of what are the things we talked about internally as it comes to engaging with our customers and prospects. And I share these as there's no silver bullets here, right? There was not one thing that's like, oh, during a crisis, we're going to do these specific things. I think of these as really just best practices, but during a time like this was really important to revisit, remember, and just reconsider and adjust as we move forward. Because it's not only about making sure you're communicating with them effectively. In today's time, it's also making sure you're doing it efficiently as well. So the first thing I'd recommend is listening is more important than ever. And in today's environment, whether it be customer support, working with an existing customer, trying to sell into a new account or prospect, listening's just a little bit more. It's always important, right? But really go the extra step right now, seek clarity, ask for context, maybe broaden the scope. Maybe typically your listening and question asking is always based on the questions and things that are relevant to your sales process, right? Or to your upgrade process. In this case, understand how that person's doing. How's their family doing? How's their local community doing? All of those things are things that impact their business, their mindset, what they're thinking about. And in some cases, listening is helping, right? Most of us, especially for those who are in sales, like we always want to jump to solve problems. We want to answer questions. Sometimes listening is a form of helping. I think during times like this, it's important to remember that. And by better listening, it's going to allow you to first assess whether or not an action is required and what that action is. The more context you have, the better it is. You know how to respond or how to help or what to recommend. And it would better inform preventative solutions, right? So as you learn more and you're able to understand how a broader range of your customers are impacted, both their business, their professional life, their community, their personal life, it allows you to understand how you can more broadly approach your marketing message, changing your value proposition, like Teresa said. All of that listening will inform those changes. The next one is revisiting reducing friction. In most cases, I always say, friction is your inefficiency in your growth engine, in your sales, and your upgrades, in your new business. And I think businesses and salespeople are always looking at where's that friction? What are the objections that we have to overcome? Where are our inefficiencies in our process? But I think it's really important in today's environment to really think through like your buying process, right? You have your awareness stage, your evaluation stage, your consideration, your decision, and recognizing that the typical friction that you see at these stages that right? If you've been doing this for 10, 15 years, you know what the friction is, you can anticipate it, you can plan for it. The reality is those friction points have changed, right? There's different friction that you didn't have historically. So keep a keen ear out for what are the new frictions, what is that new norm that's coming up, and adjust accordingly. And really think through it in different phases, right? Because if you're a leader of a team, there might be friction across that entire buying process, from the time they learn about your company or you want to introduce it to the time they buy. One person can't tackle all that friction. So really split it up and make sure your teams are thinking about how you can reduce friction collectively. The next one is self-service options. Now, I'll share a resource at the end, and in many cases at Help Scout, we think of self-service a lot in the context of support. But I think of it in the context of the friction your customers have, the questions they have, what's on their mind, and really making sure that in today's environment, Teresa had mentioned, she said, right, today people might be pushing off that call. And it's not because it's not important to them. It's because their priorities have shifted, right? Or their timeline has shifted because they're focused on the now. So making sure that as you understand this friction, you understand what problems people are talking about, how they're impacted, and you've adjusted your own personal pitch or approach or value proposition, make sure that you make those same changes to your website or to other resources that people can look at and read and digest on their own, that might be able to increase the speed in which you're able to drive those live conversations. I just think it's an opportunity to revisit that as a way of communicating and engaging customers. And then last but not least, we could sit here all day and talk about the things you have to do to sell, right? And to change in your sales process or your marketing process. The other thing that I think goes a long way is making sure you care for your team, right? So we're talking a lot about our customers and our prospects. Well, the people who are selling and serving and answering questions every day are going through a lot of those same challenges that they are. So just making sure that you give your team space and you listen to them. We've really talked a lot about calm and consistent communication, right? So we're communicating with the teams frequently, consistently, really making sure we're listening, asking questions, and just getting a pulse check across our organization on how everyone is doing. It's a simple thing, but acknowledge, right? Just knowing that somebody could be having a bad day, their sales numbers are down. They're getting a lot more support requests from unhappy customers. People may want to cancel, right, because their budgets are changing. Acknowledging that for your team, that times are difficult, and knowing and reassuring them you're in it with them together, I think is really important. And then if you're able to, don't forget the good R&R, right? Make sure your teams have time and are reminded, like, take an extra day and rest and recover, and clear your head during this time, and it will go a lot. It's always helpful, but in times like this, it'll really go a long way. So Carmel's going to be sharing some things after the call. Here, I'm going to share, there's a broad spectrum for everyone, right? But I think a few things, we do have some tips for crisis communication for your customer service teams. Danielle is going to do a really great job talking about some remote best practice and tips there, but we also had a guide that we've worked with Zapier on that we'll share. And then there's a couple other resources that you can just reference as you're figuring out how to adjust your customer service processes during these times.
Great. Well, that's everything, Tim.
Yeah. Any questions I can answer?
Brilliant. Yeah. So I think some people are sharing like what they're currently doing to work with their existing clients to stay engaged. So let's see. At EverReady, they're calling clients, see how they're doing, and then offering virtual tours of Disney. Then talking about the contactless delivery options that they offer. So that's really, really good.
Amazing.
Sounds like they've adapted really well. Larry's going to share those tips there in the chat window. I know here in One Page CRM as well, we've been doing check-in calls as well to some of our customers. And again, it's not to sell; it's more like how's things going. And we actually have had such a mixed response. We've had like people are saying this is brilliant, they're doing great sales, if they're in the print industry maybe, or they're selling PPE, which is great. There's always winners in everything, but just to kind of build that relationship a little bit more, and also as well, I think the even taking some time and looking at what self-service offerings you have already. So like in One Page CRM, we're a software company. So, we have our blog, we have our help site, which we use Help Scout for, which is really great. But if you're just a small business as well, and maybe it is a time now to start a blog, and you don't have to be like this amazing English speaker or writer to start a blog. You can just do like simple blogs with step-by-step, just, something that will be engaging based on your knowledge in your company. So I think that's always good. So guys, if anyone has any questions.
The only thing, I just had one other thing. I saw Keith had commented and said, I really didn't think of how helpful webinars could be. The other thing I just encourage, something that we talk through here at HelpScout and we've actually done is all of our webinars are always customer service focused, right? It's related to what we sell and who we serve. As this broke up, we really thought about who our customers are and what are the problems they're having. And one of our most popular webinars was working from home with kids. Totally unrelated to what we do, but it's a problem that people have. It's a theme we kept hearing about. So I would just encourage you, as you think of those webinars, think both of what's valuable for your business, but also go back to like, what are the other things that you could just help people with during this time in a broader fashion?
Yeah, that's a really good tip.
100%.
I think I attended that webinar, and I think it's really fun as well. When you have the 2-year-old coming in on the call and stuff like that. Like that's the thing. It's important to be personal, be you as well on those types of calls. So that's brilliant. So everybody, if you'd like to keep your questions coming, if there's anything you want to ask, that maybe a problem you're looking to solve, feel free to type it in the chat window. So I'll pass you over to Danielle now, who's going to share some remote working tips and tricks and everything else.
Cool. Can you folks see what I'm showing?
Yes, all good there.
All good. Okay, awesome. Well, first, big thanks to Tim and Teresa for sharing all those tips on reinventing your sales and support motions, really helpful strategies. What I'm going to talk to you about is making sure that your team and your own workflows are well adapted to this new reality, so you actually have a foundation in place to execute on some of those really helpful strategies and tips. So first, why did Carmel ask me to talk to you guys today? So like she mentioned earlier in the webinar, Zapier is a tool that allows people like yourselves, small business owners, salespeople to connect to the software that they're using every day and be more productive, save time. What this means is that we have a pretty cool insight into how folks are using different tools today, what tools have they adopted in this post-COVID world, and what are they maybe using more often or doing less of. So we'll talk about some of those trends. And also, similarly to Help Scout, we have been remote since inception as well, since 2012. So about 8 years of building a team out remotely. We're at about 300 employees today working across 24 countries and 17 time zones. This comes with a lot of exciting opportunities to meet people from all over the world and some challenges too. So we'll talk through how we've been able to build a culture with being remote. Cool. So the 3 things I want to get you folks through today is do a bit of a pulse check. You know, you've been working remotely now for maybe 2 months, maybe longer. Now what? We'll talk about being a pro at remote meetings. Is probably the biggest thing that has changed about your business and your workflows. And then we'll talk about building culture and the fun side of being a remote team. All right, so you've been working remote, now what? You've likely adopted some of those new tools that we showed on the last slide, really the things that you need to critically get your work done, things like team chat, video conferencing, virtual file storage. All that stuff is mission critical to what you're doing, and I'm sure you guys are there. But it's not just about finding new tools, it's also about shifting the in-person systems and processes that you've had in place to work for this remote environment. A really simple example to illustrate this, you know, Justin might have walked into the office and said a great good morning to everyone, maybe a quick catch up with some of his teammates as he was walking in. Now he sends a good morning to his teammate on Slack, and you know, she's a bit confused and maybe a little uncomfortable. So, you know, how have our jobs changed now that more people are working from home? Like, it can be a bit awkward and maybe feel more formal. You know, something that he tries instead is to be a bit more casual, conversational, use a bit of humor. This is just like one really small example of how we're adapting our processes every day in this new remote world that we're in. So we did a bit of research at Zapier. We're very interested in how folks are feeling. About a month ago, we surveyed 1,200 people in America who had recently transitioned to remote work, and this is what they had to say. A lot of people are missing their coworkers. Big chunk of people who are working longer hours. Would love to hear if any of this resonates with you folks in the chat, or maybe your teammates have shared some sentiments. And then this kind of 26 to 29% bucket, saying that parts of their jobs have been executed more quickly, and saying that non-essential meetings have been pared down to emails. So we are excited when we see that, because we see that people are using their time more effectively, but these percentages are not at 100%. So we'll talk about some strategies if you don't fall into that bucket, where you've been able to be more productive. And if you do fall into that bucket, please share your tips in the chat. Would love to hear them. All right, and you might consider trying to understand if your team is feeling similarly. Maybe you send out a feeler like Justin did, something more casual and even humorous, or something you can do to do this at scale is do polls, send out forms, or use a tool like Poly for Slack to create anonymous polls. So definitely want to be checking in on how your own team is feeling on some of these different aspects of working from home. All right, so going into some of the tips for being a pro at remote meetings, we'll talk about 3 of these things in depth, but the question you might ask your team or your clients might be asking you is, do we really need a meeting for this? Teresa talked a lot about going slow to go fast. This is a time to embrace asynchronous work. If this is a question that you're getting from prospective or current customer, maybe you decide to record that demo you're going to do, or record that slide walkthrough and send it to them in an email when they can look at it at their own time. And you know, it might surprise you. It might be after they put the kids to bed and they have a chance to look at it, and you might get some interesting questions in your inbox the next day. So asynchronous work is a fancy way of saying not everything needs to be done at the same time. So how do you do things internally, not at the same time? You might consider DAISYs. DAISY stands for Driver, Approver, Contributor, and Informed. This is a document. This is like a sample on the side here of outlining a decision that needs to be made, who's involved, how we got there, why it's even a problem, suggested solutions, and pros and cons. What we do as Zapier is we send out these DAISYs. It allows people to chime in, add comments, and then we can make a sometimes big, sometimes small decision without even meeting in a room. And this really gives time to people to digest the information and share their opinions, especially since people will be working at all different schedules at this time. Next tip is agreeing on tech protocols ahead of time. And this starts with knowing who's hosting the meeting. This is probably going to be you if it's a meeting with a client. And it'll be on you to set up those Zoom links or the meeting URL, and definitely an important time to be mindful that your clients or teammates might be adjusting to these new tools. So maybe you want to add an alternative way to reach you just in case they're not able to figure it out, maybe your phone number or another alternative. But it will be important to be mindful of that before the meeting even happens. Deciding where written chat will happen. So Carmel did a great job of this with this webinar. Chatter is in the chat section, but for Q&A, we want to add those to the Q&A section so that they don't get lost. And tools like Slido and Dory can also be a great way to aggregate Q&A during a meeting. And you also might want to decide if a meeting will be recorded or not. And also the structure of where do these recordings end up living? We use Wistia at Zapier to store these meetings. You might use Dropbox or Google Drive, just so folks on your team know where to find these when they do want to catch up on meetings. All right. Next, being intentional about your communication. Tim chatted a lot about listening. Listening is hard over Zoom or Google Meets. We can't rely as much on nonverbal cues. And this is hard as a leader of the meeting. You might not be able to tell that someone is smiling and nodding along. So you're going to maybe have to call on people by name. And I think this works both internally and externally. There might be a number of different folks from the client who are joining the meeting, and you'll want to hear feedback from all of them. So call on them by name, see if they have something to contribute. And you might also want to pause longer than normal to account for lag. As the leader of the meeting, this might take some getting used to, might feel a little awkward, but it can help make sure that everyone that wants to contributes. See, that pause wasn't so awkward. The last thing you want to do, and this is really helpful for internal meetings, is establishing a system of who's going to speak next. So we will type the word next into the chat in Zoom, and then the leader of the meeting will document, hey, okay, here's the question order to make sure that the loudest voice doesn't get the most airtime in a meeting. All right, so coming back to some of the stats that we looked at the beginning, 42% of workers are saying that they're missing socializing with their coworkers. It's not everybody, not even the majority. Imagine some people are just trying to keep their head above water, but this might be you or this might be your teammate. So we want to have some processes and opportunities in place to allow folks to socialize. And this really starts with designating space for this socializing. It really comes from the top. Management has to make sure people know that it's okay to be social and to have these spaces. And what we do is we have different fun channels on Slack at Zapier. We prefix the word fun to these channels so people know that this is a space that is outside of our focus on the day-to-day work. Lots of different stuff here. We have channels for crafting, different TV shows, parenting, so people can share struggles as well as talk about their shared interests, and you can connect with folks who you might not be connecting with on a day-to-day basis. All right, finding ways to be together even when you're apart. Lots of ways to do this. We have a social calendar at Zapier that people will add things like Netflix parties or crafting hours or different happy hours to. And it'll create a feed in a Slack channel where folks can take a look, see what's going on, and decide if they want to attend some of those things. We also use an app on Slack called Donut. This randomly pairs people up from across our organization every week for a half-hour chat. Something super silly that we did recently last week, we decided to turn our Slack channel into AOL Instant Messaging MSN, just throwing it way back to high school days. Folks added their senior photos as their profile pictures, put angsty statuses, teen lyrics in their Slack status. Was this productive? Absolutely not. Was it a lot of fun, and did it allow us to get to know our coworkers better? Absolutely yes. So, and we created a blog post about it if you want to replicate this in your own Slack workspace. All right, and then one plug that I'll make for Zapier is that we do make it so that these connections can happen automatically too. You can maybe post a GIF or a inspirational quote in a Slack channel automatically to make people laugh or inspire some conversation. Scheduling it means that no one has to remember to do this. And with Zapier, you can also make it so that these Slack messages come from you, so no one will know that you're automating this. One kind of automation that we have is our Fun Dad Jokes channel. We have a daily dad bot that will post a dad joke every so often. Small but mighty group of 26 folks at the company who are tough critics. So you can see that they've rated this dad joke only a 2 out of 5 stars. And we also have this dad joke reaction that folks, when they react to a message across our entire Slack workspace, the dad joke will appear in this feed. So these 26 folks get a consistent stream of dad jokes to enjoy. And like I said, Zapier has been a remote company since inception. We have a ton of different tips around remote work. I've linked here the ebook that we've created on remote work, as well have some appendix slides on some different ways, if you are interested in using Zapier to automate your remote work, to do that as well. Thanks so much.
Super. That was great, Danielle. Thank you. And I think lots of good tips there about the meetings. I know actually from our experience here, we had a meeting, I think it was yesterday, and there was like only 5 of us on the meeting. And at one point, the host of the meeting said, "Is everyone still there?" Because everyone was just actually listening. And so she kind of had to rejig to see was everyone still alive. And I was just wondering, do you have to be a dad to be in that bad dad jokes group? Because I would totally love that group.
Just need an appreciation for puns.
Oh, good. Yeah, then I'd be there. And I really liked as well the stats that you shared about the socializing at work. So I think it was like 46% or something, or 42%. And what we find here on One Page CRM is that I'd say if you surveyed people, I think what they'd miss most about the social aspect is the kitchen chats. So it just happens, you go in to make a cup of tea or coffee, or and suddenly you're having a full-on debate about something, or you're deciding on where a button should go in the app, or you're crossing paths with a software engineer that you usually wouldn't chat to, and suddenly you're asking him, why don't we have this? So lots of good decisions as well has come out of the kitchen chats. I also think as well in One Page CRM, we've been lucky that we have been using cloud-based apps all along. So like Health Scout, like Zapier, of course, One Page CRM, Google, Zoom, and that's definitely made our transition a little bit easier. So I think maybe people need to start thinking, if you are looking for a new app, just think, is it cloud-based? Because it makes everything a lot easier. And then since going remote as well, I'm just going to share my screen. So we've got lots of new furry friends in the office. So let me share here. So what we've noticed as well in our weekly newsletter, I'll just start here. In our weekly newsletter, people are sharing lots of pet stuff, which I think is really nice as well. And people want to show, let me just start slideshow. I just used it today, so I'm usually at Google. So yeah, so these are the new team members to One Page CRM. So we have Bacon, the miniature Shih Tzu. We have Mila, the Spaniel Collie Cross. And then we have Tobin as well, who's a Border Collie. So lots of conversations have opened up around pets, and you know, people getting to know each other a little bit more. So I think that's important as well, is to encourage people to share information and their hobbies, their interests, their pets, their animals, their families. I think it's a good time to get to know each other a little bit better. So yeah, that's kind of everything from me. We'll open up the floor to some questions, Larry. So
great point. Yeah, well, thanks everyone, first of all, for sharing all of your feedback and all of your tips as well. Something that I wanted to mention from Kate Kirk, basically, something that she said, it's bringing the point to how we can go the extra mile. I think it's a good opportunity as well for us to think about how we can do that. In her example, she's telling us that she's actually providing PPE, mask, and hand sanitizer to a few of the customers they can. So that's how they can make it. So it's a good point for us to think how we can go the extra mile. We know we may not be able to provide that, but I'm pretty sure that from our own perspective, there's something that we can all go the extra mile with our customers. So that's a really good point as well.
So again, thank you so much to everybody for joining today. We really appreciate it, and for your interaction as well on the chat. We'll be following up as well with an email, but we'll also post some links there on the chat too. And a huge thank you as well to our speakers, of course, Teresa French and Danielle Saker, and of course Larry, who's one of our customer success champions. It's always been great to host these sessions. So thank you so much, everybody, and take care, and keep in touch with us as well with all your questions and feedback, and let us know what you think. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Yeah.